welcome to another edition of Busternet. We are here. It's the winter update. The patch is out. Lots of people are going to be wondering if there's anything that's changed in the patch. So I've come off my high horse and I've decided, okay, why don't I do a video to explain to people how it's possible for me to play the game and not worry about match engine changes. How it's possible for me to take a break from FM for like 3 years, come back and still dominate the game. There is a methodology that I use and it's extremely simple. And I'm going to explain this hopefully in a few videos. Maybe this video will be enough. I'm not really sure, but I'll do all this in a few videos if I can. And I'm going to go through the common setup that I do, why I make the approach that I choose. Furthermore, I will also show you how I use, if anyone is still familiar with what I wrote in FM12, I called it the Yin-Yang strategy. Basically, it's about balance and looking at your overall shape of your system and to spot flaws and to identify weaknesses in your system. You can go into a lot more detail than just that. You can go to addictedtofm.com, look at the tactics section, and there's a lot of articles that are written there. So the whole purpose of these videos is to help people understand how they can make more solid tactics. I'm not suggesting you're going to make world beaters. You're not going to make a super tactic. But what you're going to do is you're going to be able to create tactics on the fly. You'll be able to spot weaknesses in your tactic. You'll be able to understand why a certain player doesn't play very well. You'll be able to identify why your team isn't defending from crosses easily. I find that my approach works every single edition. I don't have to worry about the number of match engine changes or whether or not, they made all these changes. No, the fact is, the match engine, if we were to begin with that, is essentially, they built the match engine way back in 1998. So over time, there was one major revolution of the match engine, but it's evolved over time. Essentially, it's got lines of code, millions of lines of code. And SI are not going to go back in and rewrite the entire engine. There's no way they're going to do that. They're going to build on the engine. They're going to optimize the code. If they find that there are buggy performances or there's something that doesn't seem right, they will go in and they'll fix it, which is what SI do. So essentially, if you approach the game in a certain way, you will be able to play the game satisfactorily over time. If you understand the principles, over time, you will outperform the AI almost all the time. And if you completely master a process, then you probably will end up with runs like mine, which can last like 500 games unbeaten. So how do I get these 500 games unbeaten? My methodology is simple, and that's what I'm going to start explaining. So if you want to learn about tactics, pick a side of Barcelona. Barcelona are going to have really good players, so you can learn as much as you want from them. And then you understand the tactics, then you go into a game and choose your long-term save, and then you start, okay, all right, I've understood the basics. This is what my 4-4-2 can look like if my side is really good. Let's see how it fits to Walsall, for example. So that's how you begin. Now, there are three main elements in creating any tactic that you have to get to grips with. The first thing is the tactical creator. The second thing is the actual tactic that you want to use, whether it's a 4-4-2, a 3-5-2, whatever system that you want. Finally, it's the players themselves, their attributes and how the attributes fit into the tactic. So these are the three main elements that are all parts of a puzzle that have to be put together really nicely for you to get the tactic working beautifully. I'll assume that everybody has a personal favorite shape. So if you have a personal favorite shape, you need to find out a lot more about that shape that you like, whether it's a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-4. You need to understand the tactic itself. Now, once you've picked your personal favorite shape, then you have to look at your team. Now, it won't always be the case that your personal favorite shape will fit into your team. That's when you look at your players and you go like, okay, I want to play a 4-4-2, but I don't have any side midfielders or I don't have any wingers. I have lots of strikers. What am I going to do? Okay, that's when you start adapting. That's when you start looking at, maybe I don't play a 4-4-2, maybe I'll play a 4-3-1-2. Because I've got three great players who can score goals, and I've got 2 or 3 holding players. I don't really have any wingers, so yeah, go to a 4-3-1-2. Or you could be playing a narrow 4-1-3-2. as well, which doesn't require wingers. It just has fullbacks bombing up and down. So choose your tactic will depend a lot on the players that you have. Now, it's amazing how many people make a mistake with that very first principle, choosing the right tactic for your players. A lot of people try to fit a round peg into a square hole, and they go like, dude, I'm trying my best to get my team to play the way I want them to play. Then they send me the tactic, and I look at the tactic, and I look at their players, and I go like, why are you trying to play with wingers when you don't have any wingers? You asking your side midfielders to play as wingers. They don't have acceleration off the ball. Your players just can't play what you think they can do. And then people try and insist that it should work and it has to work because that's how they play in real life. And I'm going, okay, they may be able to play like that in real life, but in the game itself, in terms of attributes, they don't really have those attributes for you to click everything into place. So you need to understand that the tactic will not always be suitable for your players. That's the first thing that you gotta get right. So get the tactic right for your players. This means that when you choose your tactic, you need to know the attacking emphasis of your tactic. You need to know the defensive emphasis of your tactic. If it's a 4-4-2 that you're choosing, then if you're choosing to play like Liverpool did with Steve Highway on the flanks, then they bomb up and down the flanks with two attacking wingers, and they've got excellent holding midfielders in the center of the park. So you're going to have to find two players who can play like wingers with fantastic off-the-ball acceleration, crossing, and dribbling. If you don't have those kind of players, then you have to adapt. You have to change your tactic. You have to all get in players. So always make sure that you do that first. Understand the players that you have. That's sorted. You've got some shape in your head. You got some tactic in your head. Now let's look at the tactical creator itself. I have a video called Dark Arts of Attacking Football. I suggest people go take a look at that video because it will explain team shape in a lot more detail, and it's got a lot of examples and on how it affects your team's ability to attack and defend. It's a really good video, and I won't be going into too much detail on team shape because it's covered in the video. I want to save time and focus on other elements here. The first thing you want to understand is mentality. Mentality is strictly, in really simple terms, a risk barometer. The higher your mentality, the more risk your team is willing to take. The lower your mentality, the lower risk they are willing to tolerate, which essentially means it'll affect a lot of things. It'll affect their style of passing. It'll affect whether they make forward runs. It'll affect whether they come back to defend. It'll affect who comes back to defend as well. This is going to be impacted by roles and duties in the team. So if you're playing a game and you're not sure what to do, you started a game and you go like, okay, I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to choose standard. Now, standard is like the 50-50 mentality. Essentially, you can imagine having Humpty Dumpty on the wall. Okay, he's sitting up there. You don't know whether he's going to fall or not. That's basically your tactic. Standard means you're sitting on the fence. Your team is going to be stuck with decision making. You may not carve out a lot of chances. And yeah, it's not a bad system to take because you want to suss out the opposition. And here, you need to go and look at shape then, because shape it affects how compact your team is and their distances between each other. If you choose highly structured, the team is split along their mentalities. So attacking players will focus on attacking, supporting players will only support when the transition is right, and defensive players will just defend all the time. Okay, so players are only responsible for their transition phases in highly structured. Okay, if you look at this, the only players who are really affected by a transition will be midfielders. Okay, midfielders are the ones that are going to do some transitioning, and defenders, unless they're on attack roles, they'll transition. But highly structured is like telling your team in very simple terms, hey, you guys attack, go worry about attack, I'll worry about defense. Gaps between the team become a bit bigger because between attack and defense. All right, it's great if you want to set up a counter-attacking system, or even good for certain attacking systems depending on the style that you want to play. Then that goes to structured, flexible, fluid, and very fluid. So by the time you get to very fluid, it's a lot more compact. The team is all thinking alike. The difference here is in highly structured, the team is rather disciplined. Okay, there's little creative freedom. But in very fluid, they're like, they're all like Van Goghs on a pitch. All of them believe they're Cantona. They will all try to do something different. Now, Is this true for every single team? Not necessarily. Because very fluid increases their creative freedom, but you must always remember that it's the players' attributes that come into play as well. So you want to look at things like decisions. He's got 15, so he's probably going to love having higher creative freedom. And his vision is 17. So players like this who have reasonable flair and decision making, and they're gonna enjoy the greater creative freedom. They might try something different. Now, higher creative freedom also means that there's a strong chance that they'll leave their lines of responsibility. So if you go to very fluid, this chap, Rakitic, for example, the first thing I do when I want to play very fluid is I look at teamwork. 14, okay, good. 14 is like he is likely to come back and help his mates out if they're in trouble. And then I look at bravery. 11, oh, okay, he might not, there's a 50-50 chance he'll put in a tackle. All right, sometimes he might not, but okay, he can be there in terms of helping out his teammates. But then I look at acceleration. Can he get there in time? Not always. So his positioning must be good. Oh, it's only 12. All right, so okay. So he is good and decent, but not like phenomenal. All right, and this is something that I'll look at when I look at their when they're in a very fluid system. So in a very fluid system, the increase in creative freedom allows them to play a bit more with freedom. They'll start doing a bit. They will leave their responsibility. So if Rakitic is when they're playing with higher creative freedom, chances are if you think that Rafinha is going to stay on the flanks, he sometimes might not. He might go wandering over to this side. Or Neymar might wander over to this side. And then you start asking yourself, where the heck is Busquets? Unless they have a really hardcore role like defend, they will stay all back all the time. But guys who are on attack and to some extent support, they may leave their lines. But this is under very fluid. If you're highly structured, they're going to be so disciplined. You don't expect them to try something unique or different. So if you wanted to play with a really defensive system, or you want to get them to play along your lines and you want them to play exactly the way you want them to play, then you want to go structured. If you're not sure, this is what I always suggest. If you're never sure and you don't want to mess with shit, always take flexible. All right? Fluid can get you into a lot of trouble. Why? Because they're all compact. Balls over the top are going to go behind your team. And then you'll be racing and wondering, what the heck can I do? There is a strategy for fluid. If you're playing a fluid system and the balls go over the top, okay, then go to your team instructions, adjust your defensive line. Drop it. If you find that your players are always looking at goal and chasing back, then your defensive line needs to be adjusted. If you find that your players have all the time in the world to look at the ball calm and step forward to get to the ball, then maybe your defensive line is a bit too deep. In such a case, I might even go structured because I can push these guys up, push the defensive line up, and then tell the guys to go structured. What happens when they go structured? All the players on attack, they go and have fun. Now, when players go and have fun on attack duties, man for man, they better be better, okay? Or else they're going to have issues. So that's basically mentality, team shape when it comes to a tactic. So whenever you have a doubt, always pick flexible. When you go fluid, team is going to be more compact. If you go structured, the team is going to be more spread out. That's basically it. Now let's come to team instructions. I'm not going to go through every single team instruction here, but basically team instructions influence the way you play the ball. There are some team instructions I've never used. In all my years of FM, okay, since the Tactical Creator came out, there are two team instructions I've never touched. Creative freedom, I've never touched it from day one. Freedom of movement, I've never touched this as well. These two, I don't find a need to. Why? Because Shape is doing such a good job in FM 16. Even in FM 12, 13, and 14, I never used these. I didn't see the point. I was like, roam from positions. I don't want people to just go roam from positions because it will demand that my team have such a tactical awareness for knowing where they're supposed to be all the time. I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. The other shouts that I don't use is basically these two. Other shouts I don't use the clear ball to the flank shouts. I've never used them as well. This is like one of those Hail Mary, kick the ball out, let's hope for something good to happen. And I don't play that kind of football. Pump ball into box is not a bad instruction, but why would you want to do that? I mean, if you really wanted to pump ball into a box, set the goalkeeper to pump ball into the box. Then play out the defense is pretty good. Yeah, you get short passes, they play out, and if your team has got good composure, use the shot. Pass into space. This is to unlock, you know, space if you want to use the shout. But this shout itself, if you don't have players who have got good off the ball running, why do you want to use pass into space? I mean, if they don't have good off the ball running, they're not going to run into space. So you'll be passing the ball into a place where your players aren't at, which means you are going to give away possession. So if your possession numbers are low and you're using this shot, please take this off first before you do anything else. What about attacking systems? I would generally go like use offside trap where you can. And the other shot that I love to use is prevent shot goalkeeper distribution. I don't even know whether this works, but heck man, it's there for a reason, so I'll use it. Get stuck in, stay on feet is situational. I do use them. Hit early crosses is one of my favorites, and look for overlap as well is one of my favorites. These two shouts are really good. They are the final third attacking shouts. And the good thing about these shouts is it depends on your system that you play. If you play a system which has got an attacking midfielder, like a wingers that are in a 4-3-3, they are sitting on the AML slots, then these guys already on attack duty, they're running forward, and you got a playmaker trying to boot the ball out. He hits it to a fullback. The fullback is going to start crossing early. The moment he sees a player has the potential to go behind the defensive line, a hit early cross is going to find him. Look for overlap. This instruction will generally tell players in the middle of the park not to make so many forward runs. Okay, it will ask the guys on the sides to make those forward runs, and it's a good shot to have. Work ball into box reduces crosses and reduces long shots. Good shot to have if you know what you're doing. Okay, I've sometimes taken work ball into box because it takes. No, I don't want to have them tick-tocking the ball and the whole team comes back to defend. I mean, what's the point? I want to break. I've gotten superior numbers, and if I go work ball into box, yeah, okay, here we go. We'll pass the ball to each other. Okay, let's wait for the rest of them to come back into the box before and try and unlock them. What's the point? So work ball into box is situational as well. In some of my attacking systems, I don't use them. I tend to use look for overlap and work ball into box in a combination if I want to set up a tactic, which is a camping tactic, which is essentially I'm going to camp these guys half because they're weaker than me. They are defending, they are parking the bus, the truck, the trailer, and their mother's house in front of goal. Yes, then I'll use look for overlap, work ball into box, and I'll go wider. Then I'll start to unlock them. But remember, if you're fluid and you're using these two shots in combination, if they decide to punt the ball out, your players better have good positioning, acceleration, determination, work rate. They gotta get back into place. And if you find that your players are having to turn around and run after the ball after they launch it over their heads, then you know your defensive line is too high. So drop your defensive line. That's the first thing that you do. Okay, so I don't want to make really long videos, so that essentially are the basics of the overall principles of mentality, shape, and player roles and attributes to put into a system. In my next videos, I will start looking at weaknesses in certain systems and how you can change them, how you set a tactic up with the right roles and the combinations. I will explain the Yin-Yang theory. I will show you what I mean by space control, and I will also do a few more about various tactics. Like I'll do a 4-4-2 and I'll discuss it. I'll do a 4-3-1-2, I'll discuss it. So I will start doing those and explain what are the common mistakes I see people doing. I will then show you how to identify defensive weaknesses, what are the strategies that I use. Essentially, by the time I finish these two videos, you'd have gotten a grasp of the basics and some advanced techniques that you can use. And for every edition of FM that comes out, you will never need to do anything like, oh, I'm going to go tactic test. No, you probably just play a couple of minutes with Barcelona in FM Touch and go, yeah, same system works. Yeah, I'll go use it. To tell you the truth, I've got people who are still using my FM 15 tactics in FM 16 and it works for them. Most of my systems are still relevant from FM 12. I've used a lot of my systems from FM12. I haven't changed very much. It's the same roles, it's the same duties. The shouts are essentially the same. I go in and I play it the same way. There's slight differences in maybe duty. Yeah, I might do a duty slightly differently. I might play the defensive line slightly differently. But that's the point of the next video. In the next video, I'm going to show you techniques to strengthen your tactics even more and to identify defensive flaws. So please watch part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, please like, please share. Like it as many times as you can possibly like it. The more likes I get for this video, the more attention it gets, the more it helps other people. I'm only doing this video so that I can help you guys master the game, so that you don't have to spend like 5 hours trying to figure things out. That's it. I want to add value to people's lives when they play this game. And I think that putting this out, and it's going to be a video that you can use it for. I'm very, very sure you can use it for the next edition of FM 17 and FM 18 and FM 19. It's not going to change. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you want to ask me any more questions, perhaps you want me to cover something else in a future video, please drop me a note on Twitter. You can find me at BusterNet, or you can drop me a longer note at addicted2fm.com, and I'll try and get back to you guys. So I'll catch you guys again soon. Bye bye.